Class is back in session, and today we're here to give our final grades for the Carolina Panthers in the 2024 season. Now, today we're going to focus primarily on the starters. I could go through the entire roster, but I figured, you know what, let's focus on the guys that were out there, the ones we saw the most, and let's give you my thoughts and evaluations. So for the first video we're going to go through the offense. We'll follow this up with additional video. We're going to be breaking down the defense. But without further ado, let us jump right in, folks. Final grades, offense. First up, the one, the only, Bryce Young. PFF grade 74.4, which ranked 22nd out of 42 quarterbacks. He had 60.9% completion percentage, 2,403 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 15 passing touchdowns, 6.3 yards per attempt, 82.2 rating, played in 14 games, 249 yards rushing, 6 rushing touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and sacked 29 times. So for me, man, you look, and we've talked about it, we spent our time discussing Bryce Young and his entire season. I give this guy a solid B+ for his performance. Now, of course, at the beginning of the year, it was an F, it was a D, it was an F-, it was a failing, it was a he's never coming back here to Carolina. But after seeing the performance, after the benching, the progression, we heard Adam Thielen on Radio Row talking about Panthers and what he saw out of Bryce Young, and that's part of the reason that he wanted to come back was the development. You have to feel excited as a Panthers fan. And it lets the Panthers build the roster, focus on defense, get a few more weapons on offense, and give you a chance to succeed with a quarterback on their rookie contract. So he's only going into year 3. They pick up the 5th-year option. I mean, you're talking about another 2 to 3 years right now without an extension. Very manageable situation for the Carolina Panthers. So for me, fantastic season. B+ for Bryce Young. We move on to Chuba Hubbard. He had a 75.9 PFF grade. 18th out of 59 running backs. 250 attempts, 1,195 rushing yards. 10 rushing touchdowns. 4.8 yards per rush. And 1,366 total yards, 11 total touchdowns, so the 1 touchdown, receiving touchdown, and then 4 total fumbles, 3 of them lost. Chuba Hubbard, hands down, A+ for me. It was a great year for Chuba Hubbard. I think he exceeded everyone's expectations. He got to 1,000 yards. He didn't get the finish, sat out with the injury, but that's okay. It was meaningless football. Let him remain healthy, get healthy heading into next year. And of course, we're going to need another back to go along with him. Who's that going to be? TBD. But I think looking across the offense, one of the best players on the offensive side of the ball. He was around 5th in rushing yards, top 5 in rushing yards for most of the season. Really came into his own and developed in this offense. And I hope we continue to see him grow. I can't expect much more. Got his extension from a 4th-round pick. All right, we're going to move to the offensive side of the ball with the wide receiver room. All right, we're going to start with Xavier Legette. 59.3 grade from PFF, 102 out of 133, 49 receptions, 497 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns. This one's tough. For me, it's a C+ overall grade. I am a homer. I supported him in college. I wanted him drafted out of that whole bunch of receivers. Again, looking back, sure, Ladd McConkey probably a little bit better. Not a little bit better, much better. A few other guys possibly in that realm. But I'm not going to write him off just yet. Tough year, tough break. He's got a chance to get it better. And folks, I don't know if you guys saw, he was in a boot. It was this past weekend. They posted a Reese's ad video on its Instagram page, and he's wheeling around on a scooter in a boot. So I don't know. I thought the hand and wrist were the issues, but apparently maybe something that we'll learn about here in the near future with his legs. I think for me, it's looking at him. I don't think he's number one, not right now. We are going to need to see him get an opportunity to develop, with leaders around him and Adam Thielen and a true number one. So there's not as much pressure. And I do think he will flourish. We'll continue to see him as the red zone threat that he was this past season. So C+, you could honestly give him, I hate to say it, but a C-, a C, maybe even a D+. All right, another wide receiver in Adam Thielen, 76.4 grade, which is 30th out of 133. 48 receptions, 615 receiving yards, led the team, 5 receiving touchdowns, only appeared in 10 games, 12.8 yards per reception. Solid A for me. I try not to give out too many A pluses. It probably could have been an A plus. Adam Thielen's performance, and man, I'm glad he's back. He's been a great connection for Bryce Young, very reliable, and I think he plays into the thing that works well for Bryce Young, which is having receivers that are good route runners that can get open, that have that anticipation as they work alongside each other. So it's something for us to think about as we look at free agency and the draft for the type of wide receivers that could be coming in to help Bryce Young. So solid production. We'll look at Jalen Coker next, undrafted free agent, 72.8 grade, which is 43rd out of 133, 32 receptions, 478 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. He only appeared in 11 games, and to be honest, it's closer to 10 because when he first came back, he was just getting in, or first came to the 53-man roster, he was just getting acclimated. What a season. Undrafted free agent, he's getting an A from me. Again, I know I said not too many A's or A pluses, but I look at Jalen Coker, I look at Adam Thielen, and I look in their production. I'm not going to hold it against them if they miss time. And Chuba Hubbard, 3 best pieces, skill position pieces to the offense. We'll talk about the offensive line, of course, in just a little bit. But Jalen Coker, fantastic story. I'm excited to see him continue to develop. We saw him a lot in the slot. I think that's an opportunity as Adam Thielen ages out next year, a year from now, seeing more of Jalen Coker in the slot and potentially elsewhere. See how this thing goes. We'll look at the last receiver on the list, which is David Moore, 63.1 grade, 88th. He had 32 receptions, 351 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns, 11 yards per carry. B-, man. B-, maybe even a solid B if we're being honest with ourselves. David Moore, great acquisition. He's traveled with Dave Canales, Seattle, Tampa, now here. Good receiver that I think is a valuable piece when you're carrying your 5 on your roster or possibly 6. I think he should be here next year. I think the Panthers should look into bringing him back. You can't go wrong with that. I think this core, also just being under the Canales system, having the time with Bryce Young, getting that connection built, be very beneficial. So good season. Jatavian Sanders, 52.5 grade, which is 63rd out of 75 tight ends. He had 32 receptions, 351 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 receiving touchdowns. For me, I graded him a little bit harder than I should have as I go back. Because I honestly made this like 2 weeks ago. And as I look back, I'm like, I didn't want to give out too many A's, too many B's. I gave him a C+. You could probably talk me into a B- with him. And I think it was, why I got closer to a C+ is it took him a little while to get going. He got going. It felt like he was, coming into his own. He had the injury. It was a setback, and you can't blame him for that. And then once he came back, It's like things just weren't right for him for whatever reason. So it was tough to see. Tough to see that part. And I hope next year, as he's able to develop it, things will come around. We're going to kind of speed through the remainder and take a look here at Tommy Trimble, 54.4 grade, which ranks 57th, 23 receptions, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, best of his career from a receiving standpoint. Solid C plus. He kind of did the opposite, had a slow start, missed some time, but then towards the end, really found his groove and finished strong, man. No doubt about it. And I think the Panthers should, again, strongly consider bringing him back. I think he's a valuable piece and a good asset for Bryce Young. We'll move into the offensive line. Taylor Moton, one of the best in the game. This is looking at right tackles, 77.2 grade, 79.8 pass block, which was 20th among all tackles, and 66.9 run block grade, which was 53rd. He's getting a solid B plus from me. Great player, fantastic on the right side, embodies all the things we think about with the Carolina Panthers. And like this entire offensive line, honestly, if you did a cumulative score, should be about a B plus, maybe even a little bit more. Robert Hunt, 67.7 grade, which is 24th among all guards, 57.5 pass block grade, and a 72 run block. He's really good in like run blocking, no doubt about it. We saw him mauling people. A plus for me. The two guards and Robert Hunt and Davian Lewis were probably some of the best acquisitions on the line. And now let's hope that the Panthers can do the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. Cade Mays, man, solid A. 66.1 grade for a center, which is 14th. 74.9 pass block grade, which is 9th. 66.9 run block grade. I mean, I'm just thinking about him getting cut, going to a practice squad, then coming back, filling in with Austin Corbett being out, with Brady Christensen beating out Brady Christensen. He's another one that I think, as we kind of look at the state of the Carolina Panthers, I think he's a really good foundational piece. And you go back and look at this draft class from a few years ago, and maybe it's not as bad as we thought. Damian Lewis, left guard, talked about him. And the guards, 75.5 grade, 17th among all guards, 72 pass block grade, and 76.9 run block, 30th and 16th ranked. He gets a solid B plus for me. I probably should give him an A minus too. Kind of having those second guess thoughts of when I, again, initially created this grading, but really good performance. And closing it out, we have Ike Ekwonu. Good year for him. 71.7 grade, 36th, 66.2 pass block grade, and a 80.5 run blocking. I mean, the strength of this team is run blocking, hands down. His team is really good at run blocking. We hope Dave Canales can continue to lean into that. But solid, man. So offensive grades in the books. That's it. That's all we're going to look at. Again, we're not going to go too far into the depth chart. I have another video coming out where we'll break down the defensive side of the ball. And until then, this is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.